Why is there so much noise? They're performing another play. Another play. Another play. Oh boy!
It's the year 1558, the end of the reign of Mary I, or more commonly, Bloody Mary, and the beginning of a new reign led by England's newest queen, Elizabeth I. With their new appointed queen, this period of time would be forever called the Elizabethan age. This age signified a span of time characterized by relative peace and prosperity, and by a flowering of artistic, literary, and intellectual culture. In fact, this period of time was so prosperous and joyous, it became most well known as England's Golden Age. Besides religious conflicts and confusions of Catholicism versus Protestantism, as well as Queen Elizabeth I's inspiring and meticulous speeches when bravely standing beside her people before the defeat of the Spanish Armada, this age was most celebrated for its flourishing literature scene. Many of the great works of English literature were produced during these years. Art, poetry, drama, and learning in general flourished as the confidence and nationalism Elizabeth inspired spilled from the economic sector to cultural achievements. Which leads into the topic of the day, the influence of Queen Elizabeth I on English literature. Queen Elizabeth I, daughter of King Henry VIII of England, and his wife, Anne Boleyn, had a long-lasting reputation, known by her people that she was a lover of the arts, especially for music and theater. Though she herself was not primarily known as a poet, her verses demonstrate a keen intellect and a masterful command of language. They reveal a deep understanding of the power of language, not only to express personal feelings, but also to shape public perception and assert authority. If you were an aspiring writer or artist in the Elizabethan era, it's most likely that the Queen herself would have seen or reviewed your writings. In fact, with the grace of the Queen, you'd probably be a renowned writer of these times.
Under the patronage of the Queen herself and her court, these age come with some of the most famous poets and playwrights that are still talked about to this day, including William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, and Edmund Spenser.
Elizabeth's reign was the first to witness the early works of William Shakespeare, these being the time where he wrote plays such as Romeo and Juliet, Love's Labour's Lost, and A Midsummer Night's Dream. Most of these plays were performed for the Queen by theatre troupes. More often than not, she would personally invite these theatre troupes to perform for her and entertain the rest of her court. Even some ministers from different countries would be in attendance to show off England's achievements.
Many of the pieces of literature that came out from this time also made references to the Queen. One of them, most famously, being Edmund Spenser's work, The Faerie Queen.
The Faerie Queen is a major epic poem and allegory written in praise of Elizabeth I, where she is represented by the character Gloriana, the Faerie Queen, and also as the virgin huntress Belphoebe. The work uses elaborate symbolism and classical allusions that his contemporaries would have recognized as references to the Queen and her court. While not explicitly mentioned by name in the text, characters and themes in plays like The Merry Wives of Windsor, which legend claims she commissioned, were influenced by the court environment and potentially by her taste. This goes to show just how revered the Queen was during the time, where writers could so openly perform and write. These moments of peace and joy found through the shared love for entertainment between the Queen and her people made this time free from big outbreaks of conflicts. Thus, this era was promptly named after the symbol of the writer's day, the Elizabethan age.
The Elizabethan age saw the flowering of poetry. The sonnet, the specerious stanza, dramatic line verse, was a golden age for drama, especially for the plays of Shakespeare, and inspired a widely variety of splendid works, from historical chronicles, versions of holy scriptures, pamphlets, and literary criticism to the first English novels.
As a matter of fact, did you know that in the 1560s, the first blank verse tragedies appeared, ultimately giving the rise to an art form that remains heavily studied today? In 1562, one of the earliest of these blank verse plays, Gorboduc, was performed for the Queen.
This piece of literature also aided in developing the modern English that we use to these days.
Thanks to our famous poets and writers, more and more literature was being consumed by day, thus slowly feeding more material to the people in the introduction of new words and in the attempt to standardize language. In this era, did we see the gradual loss of the use of though?
However, artistic creations were considered to be largely political.
Writers had a duty to honor and glorify the Queen, and failing to do so could damage their standing or even provoke a backlash. In the meantime, the Queen and her court heavily managed the press. They got to overview all of the pieces that flew in and out of the streets and what was being published to the masses.
In addition to these times, Elizabethan theatres began being built for more patrons across England to view more of these renowned plays. The first playhouse ever created in 1576, the theatre, built by James Burbage, resided in Shoreditch, setting the standard for the rest of the playhouses to be made. The most prominent one to this day and of the later Elizabethan era was the Globe, built in 1599 at Southwark. This playhouse was most commonly associated with William Shakespeare, often showcasing his new plays for all to watch. Elizabethan theatres were often made of wood, structured in a circle or polygonal shape, featuring open-air yards for groundlings, the standing audience, and tiered galleries for richer patrons, with a raised thrust stage extending into the crowd for immersive, daylight-lit performances. Remember when we mentioned that artistic creations were also seen as political messages? Well, the theater became a really clever way of spreading ideas because it appealed to so many people. Many a time, aristocracy or those closest to Elizabeth would request plays in these theaters, with some of the main focus being brutality or the overthrowing of the monarchy that could somehow cause a stir in some of the thinkers in the crowd. They did this in hopes of creating a rebellion against Queen Elizabeth. Fortunately for Elizabeth, it barely worked. A great example of this is something that we see in 1601, when former royal favorite Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, who was planning a rebellion against Elizabeth I, requested a performance of Richard II at the Globe, hoping that the play's subject matter, being the king's deposing by Henry VI and his imprisonment and murder, would rouse people to rebel. The rise of these playhouses created a common space for both aristocracy and the other classes to stand or sit alongside each other and enjoy a piece of what the Elizabethan age was able to create. From this, more plays, epics, and retellings continue to emerge day by day because of Elizabeth's fondness for the arts. It inspired more and more people to try creating literature, further developing and introducing modern English language to the masses. We've been talking about Elizabethan literature this entire time, so maybe we should get a little bit more familiar with this era by reviewing an Elizabethan poem.
The doubt of future foes exile my present joy, and with me want to shun such snares as threaten my annoy. For falsehood now doth flow, and subjects faith doth ebb. We should not be if reason's ruled, or wisdom weave the web. But clouds of joy untried do cloak aspiring minds, which turn to rain of late repent by changed course of wind. The top of hope suppose the root upreed shall be, and fruitless all their grafted guild, as shortly ye shall see. The dazzled eyes with pride which great ambitions blind, shall be unsealed by worthy weights, whose foresight falsehood finds. The daughter of debate, that discord aid thou so, shall reap no gain where formal rules till peace hath taught to know. No foreign banished weight shall anchor in this port. All round brook not seditious sect, let them elsewhere resort. My rusty sword, though rust shall first his edge employ, to pull their tops that seek such change or gape for future joy.
The Doubt of Future Foes, written by Queen Elizabeth I herself, somewhere around 1570s, reads as a skillfully written warning to those that dare to threaten her reign or position, a common occurrence around that time.
Elizabeth's reign was often threatened by the constant menace posed by Spain and the uprising favour that her black cousin, Mary Queen of Scots, was gaining by being the proper claim to the throne.
Although Queen Elizabeth was a favourite queen, because of her refusal to marry, have an heir, and name a successor, there were multiple people who plotted against her.
Take this line for example, the daughter of debate that discord aid thou so, shall reap no gain, where former rules till peace hath taught to know. This quote is referring to Queen Mary Stuart by stating she will not succeed in trying to overthrow her in her reign, extending the message to anybody else that dare to depose her. Or even at the beginning of the poem, Queen Elizabeth writes, "And with me warned to shun such snare as threaten my annoy, for falsehood now doth flow, and subjects' faith doth ebb." She is describing her doubt about her subjects that may sway with the falsehood that could have circled around the time. She follows it up with, "We should not be if reason ruled or wisdom weave the web," in hopes that her subjects will be wise enough to cover their ears and not fall victim to false claims, if they have so much wisdom.
She reminds herself to listen to her wit, referring to her brain, and how she should listen to none other but herself and avoid the traps and snares that threaten her.
Elizabeth also used rich imagery, comparing enemies' plots to weeds or grafted gills that would be fruitless, and contrasting to the clouds of joy untried with the rains of late repent, or even how confident she is to crush all instances of treason with her rusty sword, heeding a warning to her enemies whilst reassuring her loyal subjects about her strong rule despite internal threats and vicious rumors.
It is no wonder Queen Elizabeth I sought respite in her pen to issue this powerful warning through a poem. Although not published to the public, it has circled around her common circle and had all of them thinking twice about threatening her reign.
After all is said and done, the Elizabethan age was a prosperous and peaceful time for the people of England. They were entertained, decently lenient with religious practices and influences, and above all, increasing in literary rate due to the introduction of the printing press, which allowed them to easily share poems and play scripts to the public. While Queen Elizabeth I may have never given England an heir, she left a great impact on her people and changed almost everything we know about the English language. Without her encouragement and patronage for the arts, the styles of writings or development of entertainment would not be where they are now, and definitely would not have gained as much traction. We owe it to the Queen for being supportive of her people to continue broadening their creativity, and to her relentlessness in allowing the theaters to continue despite all the protests. Up until her death in 1603, she was a beloved queen and still remained a lover of the fine arts.